Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we have the CEO of Jebeh Cultural Consulting. She's also an educator, an author, a cultural competency expert, and a host of the Cultural Curriculum Chat Podcast. We have Jebeh Edmunds. Welcome to the show, Jebeh.
Thank you for having me, LeTroy. I'm glad to be here.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, my kids are off to school. The house is quiet. I'm just
Oh,
loving it. I was
uh-oh, peace
excited
and
to be
quiet.
here. Yes, nice and quiet. Yes.
All right, cool, Jeva. So, just give us a little, like a biographical snapshot into your background, your upbringing, how you became such a force in, cultural competency.
Yeah, thank you. I was born in the country of Liberia in the western coast of Africa, and my family was born and raised there as well. So we left right after our coup in the early 80s and emigrated to the United States. They were both pursuing their master's degree in economics and education. And so my parents and extended family always instilled in me to be proud of being a Liberian first and foremost. And that led me to being curious, asking all the questions at the family house parties, and to the point where it was like, okay, let me ask the elders and get back to Jebeh because Jebeh's asking so much stuff. She wants to learn more about where she came from. And so that kind of sparked in me, growing up in the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. Teachers would always ask where I was from. My classmates would always be curious. And so this journey of loving multicultural education has always been a part of my upbringing. My dad, he came to my sixth grade class and told me in front of all of my white peers in the classroom to be proud of who I was. And that really made me share as much as I could of what they had all instilled in me. And so, fast forward, went to college in northern Minnesota at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I wanted to be the next Oprah because I thought I had a different name, so might as well go
Uh-huh.
with it. And that led me to being a television news producer for a few years. And then the education bug has always been in me. My mom was a first grade teacher for over 30 years. So for me, it just felt natural to be in the classroom. So I went back and pursued my master's of teaching and ended up being a classroom teacher for over 18 years before I stepped away and became a full-time CEO in multicultural education. So for that, just taking what I instilled with my students every day, I felt like I needed to impact the world in a positive light. And after the murder of George Floyd, at May of 2020, I started my consulting business August of 2020, where companies and school districts would ask me for advice, and how the pull for them to come to me was my educator voice and approach, knowing that with companies that I was teaching their future workforce. So I knew what it was first and foremost of what our students were learning and what the organizations needed to be prepared when those students get into their offices, as well as educators who asked me for advice because I was one of them. I taught students that came from all walks of life, and they wanted to know what lesson plans that I created. They wanted to know how to, meet refugee families and talk to them because I was also a refugee child. And so that expertise and lived experience really made my company come to fruition. And we've
Okay.
been 5 years in, 80 companies training later, and still going.
Wow. Wow. So like being a first generation immigrant, what challenges did you face? Like,
Yeah.
as you continue to grow up and, achieve academic success and, become an educator, an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. Being an immigrant growing up, you are at the mercy of the government and the rules of how many immigrants from each particular country are allowed in with their visas. And then you have the waiting game of when we came in the early 80s, we were on a temporary protected status. TPS. There was an influx of Liberian refugees because of the conflict in our home country. So when we had this TPS, it was up for debate my freshman year in 1998 when I was in college. And they were ready to deny the TPS that we've been receiving for over 10, 12 years. And I remember distinctly the fear me and other Liberian refugees who already established as businesses, working, had children, and all of that was up in the air and it was out of our control. And a lot of people neglect to think when you come here as an immigrant, you still pay taxes, you still have to pay thousands of dollars a year to get a work authorization permit. So, me, even at age 16, I needed a work authorization permit just to work at my local mall up the street. All right. And every year it had to be turned over. So there's a lot of hoops that a lot of us are going through, a lot of fear behind that. I used to get the question, well, man, you sound American, but you were here since you were two and you still aren't American yet. It's like, yeah, we have to wait for our number to be called. I don't care how good of an attorney you have. It all goes down to the system, and the system that is in place is broken. We all know that. And a lot of hoops and waiting. When my eldest son, Maxwell, was born, I was not a U.S. citizen yet. I had to wait 2 more years to apply for my citizenship. After being married, my husband had to vouch for me as his wife. That got me a green card, but we had to prove our deed of our house. We had to prove all of our tax records and our bank statements. And the priest and my in laws letter of support to say we were there at the wedding. I had to ask my bridesmaids and groomsmen that we look like we were in love because, yeah, we get it. There's some people that like to break the rules, but we went through every crossing T, dotting I. And my son was there on my hip at 2 years old when I became a US citizen. And I just thought that was so not a coincidence because I'm a very faith led woman. But when I entered this country, I was two. And now with my son, when he was two, I became a US citizen. So it took 28 years for me to be a US citizen. No conflict, but just out of, waiting our turn, to get in line to become a US citizen. So it's a long journey and it's not something that happens overnight, but a lot of money, a lot of money for those work authorization permits, a lot of money for applying for a green card and even applying for your citizenship. It's a lot of money. Yeah.
So, you mentioned how the system is broken. Just talk about the conversations that you have within your circle, within your family, as to um, you you all moved here from Liberia to Minnesota, which
Yes.
is a
Yes.
unknown to a lot of people, is a
Mm-hmm.
place that is a melting pot. It's
Yes.
a lot
Yeah.
of people from Africa, that
Mm.
settle in Minnesota.
Yes.
Like, just talk about, in most cases, people are coming here just to make an honest living, just to,
Yes.
not only take care of themselves, but even the relatives they left back home.
Yes.
And
Yes.
to have to face all of these barriers, how disheartening is that?
It is very disheartening. But what I admired about my family and my Liberian community members, we were just so thankful to God that we were alive and breathing and still moving forward. My grandfather used to always say, forward ever, backward never. And he saw when my mom brought him here to visit with us that our life was here and that we were happy and healthy. But also, we always remembered. I remember he always telling me growing up that, always remember your people back home. They're rooting for you too, Jeb. They want you to succeed. And so, growing up with the conversations of our family was resilience. It was, kind of like, yeah, we've got this hardship, but we have each other. And that was the main focal point of us keeping on keeping on. It was, and even having that community to have that kinship, if you saw somebody else that you're not related to, but you're at the park or you're at a July 26th, that's our Independence Day festival. We were there in community. We didn't feel alone, especially in Minnesota, how cold it can be. There's lots of Liberian American shops and clothing stores and even school groups and family get-togethers and book clubs and stepping clubs that we do find, our pocket of safety and belonging, despite all of the hoops that we go through. It's kind of like building that armor of like, yeah, I understand this is, the burden that we have in this country, but at least I have other people around that I can vent and be in community and still feel like I have back home right here in Minnesota. Yeah.
So, in a perfect world,
Yeah.
what's your ideas for fixing this broken system?
In a perfect world, have the immigrants tell what could be more efficiently done. I think that's the biggest thing. I think if Americans were to spend a day in the immigration office, they'd be shocked and appalled of how people are treated. And I also think the immigrants do have a wonderful perspective of the urgency of, amnesty that they need. They have the wherewithal to show our government officials of I am a human being. Please treat me like a human being. And there's so many instances out there where there are times where you said this isn't efficient. People are waiting in cars for hours on end, and you're sitting in some no wall, no windows, kind of an office setting, but you're just waiting for your number. You can't leave or you lose your number. You can't find a place to eat or you lose your number. And then there's sometimes in some, offices where I went to one office and he looked at me and he goes, "Where's Liberia?" And I just took my files and walked away, and there's some offices, I don't know if it's still true, but there's some offices that serve 3 states, and that's something it's criminal as well. So people are crossing state lines just to wait all day, losing their day at work, and some companies don't like that excuse of you to leave to reapply for your status. So I think if they had some real good consultation of how to efficiently work in a humanitarian way, it would be a perfect thing, because I get it. We all need rules and regulations, but we also have human dignity, and that's the thing I think a lot of these places are missing.
What does being a Liberian American mean to you?
Oh, it means so much. It means faith in my in God. It means joy. It means laughter. It means dressing up in my African attire for special occasions. It means good fufu and soup. It means, oh man, dancing on lapas to celebrate new milestones and even being an American to share with my students, share with my community that the America that we know isn't just a one biased looking blonde hair blue eye person. It is a multifaceted group of people, and to show my kids as well, that I am proud to be American, but I also am proud to be Liberian, because that was the country that had me and birthed me, and that's the country that I still feel connected to every day.
Okay. All right. So I dropped the ball on this interview because my
Why?
wife is Nigerian
All right, Naja
and
girl, yes.
I should have dressed up. I should have dressed up.
Oh, it's okay.
So just to make you feel even more at home, you
Thank
know.
you. I love
So I
that.
apologize for not
Oh,
dressing the
it's all
part for this.
good. So, okay, I don't want to get you in trouble, but do you like Nigerian jollof rice or Liberian jollof rice?
I haven't had I haven't had Liberian jollof yet.
Okay,
Now the
okay.
crazy thing, a couple weeks ago, I was in Atlanta for my cousin's wedding. She was marrying a guy from Ghana,
Okay,
and
yes.
I tried their jollof rice for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And after I got home because my wife couldn't make it,
Yeah.
I sent her a text. I was like, "Yeah, Nigerian jollof rice wins between
Yeah.
Nigeria and Ghana."
Okay.
But yeah,
There's
I
some
have to
good
try.
competition. Yeah, there's some good like Jollof Rice Wars they call it in
Huh?
in these festivals. It's just so fun. Yeah, have that healthy fun competition. So yeah,
All
that's
right,
awesome.
all right. So what sets Liberian jollof rice apart from the competition?
I think it's just spices, to be honest.
Hmm.
Yeah, I might get in trouble, but yeah, I think our rice is a little more spicy, but it's all good. I think it's all great. Yeah, yeah. I think it's just the spice.
Uh-huh. Cool. So like storytelling is at
Hmm.
the heart of your work,
Yes.
whether it's in classrooms, consulting, podcasting, or your upcoming book, Orange Blossom. So talk about that because it's supposed to come
Yes.
out in October.
Yes. Yep, next month.
Okay,
Yes.
so what
I'm so
inspired you to write
excited.
it?
Oh man, this was on my heart for over 10 years. Yeah, storytelling has been really big. I was having one of those days, LeTroy, teaching first grade. The kids are just not listening. And my mom told me the story of the orange vendor woman. And it's a story about a woman in Liberia. She'd set up her orange vendor stand and was like the most popular orange vendor woman. And she would just, how she cut the orange and got things just so, and she just loved what she did. And there's this wealthy Liberian man. His wife was pregnant. She was craving all the things, but she really wanted this particular orange from her stand. And so the rich man came to her stand and was like, yeah, my wife would like your oranges. So every time back and forth, he just get this particular orange from this woman. And, instead of going back and forth from in town to his house, he's like, you know what? I'm just going to buy the whole stand. I got money. Just finish your day and we'll call it good. And the vendor woman looked at him and said, no, no, this is my purpose in life to serve my people. I'm here with my friends. And the moral of the story was that my mom told me, she goes, you have those days with your students where you want to just sell it to the highest bidder, just get rid of all your student oranges. But then you cultivated them, you shaped them, you got them to the next level of their learning journey. And so that was something that when I thought of the orange blossom, I was always curious of what was the backstory of the orange vendor woman and the rich man and his wife? And growing up, with being an immigrant, and if your, grandma was watching us while our parents were at work, we would watch Young and the Restless. She loved her story. She loved Victor. And so I
Hmm.
was like, okay, what if I turn these three into a soap opera type of a thing? And so it starts in 1979, Liberia, all the way to present day. And you learn more about the daughter that was in the womb of this orange blossom. And the story begins with those three people. And her journey, Jovia, is a orange blossom, and her finding her purpose in life and identity. But then there's also twists and turns and drama, like a spice of jollof rice. So
Hmm.
it's going to be good. I can't wait. It's just something to be creative for me. And yeah, also just kind of in a new realm of putting my storytelling on the page. So I'm so excited for that.
All right. And it's your first book?
My first book. Yes, yes. I'm so excited. Yeah, my debut novel.
How did that feel? Like just going
Oh,
through the
wow.
process of, like you said, Young and the Restless, which I was the same
Mm-hmm.
growing up watching Victor and Jack and
Yes, yes,
um, the Chancellors and
yes.
um,
Yeah,
Neil and Victoria and yeah,
yes.
so
Oh,
yeah, huge Young and
yes.
the Restless fan
Malcolm.
growing up. Yep,
Yeah.
Malcolm.
Yeah, I just feel like it was a great creative outlet, especially in the time that we're in. DE and I work has been, kind of pushed to the wayside out of fear. And so for me, that pause was something to get out and write. It's kind of like what sitting won't solve, writing will. And so that was my fuel in my writing process. I listened to all kinds of African music by like Fela Kuti and Brenda Fassie, and even some, reggae, and even Parliament. Like I was getting into all of these songs and getting into my characters. I went on, internet and got a bunch of stock photos of, okay, this is the picture of my character here, and just getting the arcs and the plots, and that was really fun to just work with these characters. And what's really helped me by in this process, my publisher Heather Wild with Hezi May book publishing, she really helped me in stretching, and helping me write in the sense of, oh, we need more dialogue here, or can you come up with a new scene with this character group? And that really stretched me and challenged me in a way I never thought, thinking how other writers would do. They have their manuscript and they edit and polish and it's done, but it's like, no, the iterations and writing multiple manuscripts for the same book is really cool. And I can't wait to make another one. It was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, it comes out October 16th in honor of my grandmother, Agnes, because she was the one that introduced me to Victor. And I know she would have loved this book. Yeah. So it
Uh-huh.
comes out on her birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the bug. You got the
Yes,
writer's
I got
bug.
the writer's bug. Yes.
All right, so let's get into the education and cultural consulting
Yes.
portion of your life's mission. You've taught students at every level, preschool all the way up to college.
Yes.
How do you adapt multicultural lessons to be age appropriate yet impactful?
Yes. I feel like it all depends when we call this kind of like curriculum or backward design. We kind of start with the outcome in place first. What is our main objective of what we want our students to learn? And then you go in and find the credible resources. The biggest thing that I have done as an educator, even right for preschoolers, even to college level, I always thought about what scope and sequence do I want my students to learn, and what kind of a critical thinking lens. So even with like my primary kids, we would start with Anansi the spider. And with Anansi the spider, there always is a moral lesson to go with it. And it could be about behavior or sharing and things like that. So that would be like my objective that I want my students to learn. And then we would even go even further to comparing and contrasting another fictional character. And then we can even go even further to a real life situation and find a book that is pictures. I love the Maya Angelou book, My House, My Pet Chicken and Me. And it's a girl, a Kosa girl in Southern Africa, where she walks her day to day, how she gets ready for school. And it's very age appropriate. Now, when I get to my, secondary ed students, we would do more biographical things. William Kamkwamba, who invented his own a windmill in Malawi, and the kids would read the book with me, and we would watch his TED talk afterwards, and to see, how could he do something that was sustainable for his people around him, and then give examples of how we are being sustainable with our community around us. Even when I taught at the collegiate level of how to teach multicultural education for your students, we would have books, topics, and even case studies that they could see what is a biased thing here. What did you notice with this scenario? And really dive deep into it. We had them do their own racial autobiographies of what they thought of race was in every milestone of their life. So you can do it, you can implement it. You don't need to wait for a certain month, holiday. You can infuse it in anything, in any subject. There are people of all walks of life that have touched every facet. So it's all about digging in and getting the credible and non stereotypical way of learning.
Hmm. Can you
Yes.
explain the difference between cultural appreciation and cultural
Yes.
appropriation.
Oh, yes. Oh, man, we got all day, but I got a really good one for you. Okay, cultural appreciation. Those are the things where you see people having like a make and take night, and they're having people like a feast of nations type of a thing. And they're appreciating different cultures coming in and bringing foods and sampling, maybe having people from that community sharing stories of their experiences. Cultural appropriation would be staff members at that same Feast of Nation dressing in traditional attire from that country. Maybe seeing somebody wearing a Rastafarian wig or something to say that we're representing Jamaica, or somebody wearing a sombrero without knowing the significance behind it. That's cultural appropriation. Another thing I've noticed too that's cultural appropriation was I went to a classroom I was visiting, and it was Martin Luther King, Junior Day, or, before the day we had the day off. And so it was the first grade class, and she literally had a plate with a brown egg cracked and a white egg cracked. And then she had a little sign that says we're all the same on the inside. And I told the teacher, I said, now these are 6 and 7 year olds. They just see broken eggs. What does this have to do with their inside and skin tone, I'm like, we can keep the eggs in the fridge. Oh, she was so insulted. But I said, you totally missed the mark on this one. And yeah, she never asked me to come visit her class again, but I don't know if the eggs are still there. But that's another thing of cultural appropriation. It had nothing to do with race, and how kids that age are so literal. They just see eggs that are uncooked on a paper plate. They don't see, the nuance behind it or what she thought. But yeah, so there's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of work to do. Yeah, yeah. And I'm sick of the idea of my intentions were good. I want them to think of your impact is way more powerful than your intention. So that's what I tell my audiences. Think of the impact you are having, good or bad, when you're doing displays like that.
Hmm. So, you just mentioned the teacher with the
Hmm.
example of the eggs and her not being really receptive to your consulting, your
Hmm.
critique of her teaching style. Is that often the case? Like when you're brought in to kind of advise these organizations and school systems on like what you're teaching is offensive or it's not culturally appropriate?
Oh, I think no, there's always going to be some. Even when I was in the classroom, there's always a little, a couple kids that just really want you to, see those gotcha moments. But being a seasoned teacher, I don't let that get to me. I always feel like if they're uncomfortable, that's good. I struck a nerve in them to really reflect on what they are doing and the harm that they're causing. My approach that I used to do is like my stories, and just showing how some families don't understand idioms because of where they're from. And I even had the story of just sharing that it's okay, you're going to step in it, but it's good to get checked. You have to check and correct. And so when you do get checked, it's good to, take your lumps and say, wow, I need to learn. Jebeh is really here to help me and help my students. And the ones that aren't there, LaTroy, they're not there. They're ready to be done. I've got my big Tupperware bin from 1996. You can't tell me anything. You're going to notice there's going to be more pushback from those kids. And it's not the kids are uncomfortable, and the kids are, trying to verbalize that, no, that's not okay. That's not right. Why are we still talking about Columbus when we could be talking about the indigenous people? When the kids are starting to question you really need to go back and think, wow, this lesson isn't working as well as I thought it did. Maybe I could use the resources that Jebeh has sent me, to do something that's more appropriate for this day and age. I think goes a long way. But The majority of the folks that I've worked with have come to me multiple times for help and guidance, and coming back with great results of, yeah, the teachers are really using the methods because it's simple, it's practical, and it's everyday things that they can implement in their classroom.
Dr. Todd McClain provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
I'm gonna just say, like, it, in my opinion, I guess making those changes in the classroom is much easier than making those changes within an organization.
Yeah, yeah.
I've worked, I previously worked for a company in which we were trying to generate momentum for a DEI initiative,
Yeah.
and there was very little interest from leadership. We couldn't, it was hard to even get funding to bring in a speaker, or it got to the point where the ERGs, like we split up the ERGs based on like your, the minorities, the veterans, the LGBTQIA plus. We all had separate ERGs, but when we tried to get together to do something, we just was hit with barriers nonstop. So
Yes.
we just became frustrated, and it was like,
Yes.
what's the point? So like, is it more difficult with organizations over schools?
You know, I feel like that's a really good question, LaTroy. I feel like you do get a lot more pushback with the organizations. I feel like it depends on the organization. I felt more reception from nonprofits. They were more receptive to do the work. And some for profits were, I think, when it was in vogue, when everybody was doing it and they didn't want to have the pressure of not being a part of learning more. But yeah, I did feel some tension with ERGs and employees from some organizations, not all that I work with, but the ones that had the pushback. You could tell that the leadership in some of those were just like, yeah, it's one and done. We only have this budget for this quarter. You kind of get the language, where, oh, I think we have all that we need, and it's not a priority right now, or we have to make some real hard decisions, and that had to be cut. And then you start to see with those organizations that don't do the work, there's more litigation, there's more turnover of employees and staff just leaving because they're feeling that they're not being fully seen and valued in those companies. So it's to me, it feels like those that are still coming to me for consultancy work, they want to stay on the path of moving forward. They're cutting out the noise and the the bully tactics and the voices out there, and the fear. But that's more nonprofit based. They feel like they have more, how you say, like chutzpah, like, yeah, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep on keeping on. We're not going to wait for everybody else to get back on board. We're just going to keep moving forward. And I think those are the ones that we could all learn from is, yeah, keep on keeping on. And even for, like you said, like with your former company, I wish there were mechanisms, and I have it on my website where individuals can take my trainings right there on demand. You don't have to wait for your leadership to keep going, or permission. I feel like we're all individuals and we all need to be lifelong learners in this space. So it's up to us. And if your leadership isn't doing it, well, who are you as the individual that is not moving forward? Why are they afraid for you to learn this stuff? Yeah.
Good. Um, Give us a rundown of the services you provide with
Yeah.
Jebeh Cultural Consulting.
Yeah, I do a lot of keynote speaking on harnessing the power of your name, and just, the names that we were given and the importance of why we are who we are. I do a lot of in person and online trainings, even talking about code switching. What does that mean? And how to be a culturally competent ally, and speaking up. I always say there are folks that have more power than they think and believe that they do, especially social clout when it comes to white privilege. And so using your privilege to elevate your colleagues that do not identify like you, and just all kinds of things where it's accessible. My whole mission is to provide multicultural educational resources to promote positive change. So I've got kindergarten through 12th grade lesson plans on African heritage and African American history for teachers. I'm a licensed teacher and I use the Common Core standard. So every state in this country it's compliant with. And even my trainings, they're vetted and you get a certificate and it's all online. And then I also have coaching. So after you do the training, you have me as your cultural competency coach to kind of walk you through any questions that you may have. And I love what I do. So yeah, consulting, creating and curating policies and things with companies side by side that's equitable for all. And it's just been awesome to do this 5 years in. I'm
Hmm.
still going strong. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned at the start of this conversation, there was a renewed interest in like the services you provided as a result of what happened in your backyard, in the Duluth, Minneapolis
Hmm.
area with the George Floyd um, murder. Um, just talk about, since you were in the area, just talk about the temperature and like how people were feeling, in those
Hmm.
moments and how it sparked a revolution of sorts.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The tension was really high, even living in northern Minnesota, being a black woman with biracial children, and also just thinking about how do I explain another thing again to my children, and prepping them to be safe. The grief of that was really hard. And then having to explain to my white friends and colleagues and family members of what happened and why it's happening when I still was also grieving and in shock myself. It was really, really hard, to be honest. And it was sad to think that it took his murder to spark this change of awakening. What a lot of us have been in this community of African Americans to say this has been happening since the beginning. There's been lynchings. You guys haven't said anything. There's been police brutality. No one's saying anything. But when it hit and it was in real time and people were watching it on their phones, that's, I think, was that spark, and that spark of wow, we really need to talk about it. But the thing that is sad now, 5 years later, it feels like there's been a halt. It feels like there's been okay, back to business as usual. And I was hoping, and I think a lot of us in this country and around the world was hoping that the movement would still be going. And I feel like there is. I feel like there is still forward movement. It's not on, main media channels, but it's still people having pushback, people using their voice, people being more confident in themselves and saying this is not right, when they're seeing injustice happening. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like now that momentum has swung back to complacency, especially when it comes to looking out for each other. I think, yeah, I still feel like we have a lot of work to do, and just kind of that sadness that, his death didn't stop the ripple effect of what we've been enduring all of these years.
Hmm. Um, with the halt that you just mentioned, do you feel like the DEI movement is dead, or is the stage necessary to see which side of the fence people are on?
Oh, that's good, LaTroy. I don't think it's dead. I think it's a point, not even like a fork in a road, but it's a test. A test as us as a society. Which way are we going to move forward? And I feel that when you are doing something in a movement, there automatically will be a test. But the thing is, it's up to us if we want to continue or we will fail. And that's, I think, where we're at. We're at this precipice of, okay, now what? Because we're feeling this vitriol, of hate and divisiveness. But I feel like we're right at that cusp of, okay, now what? We've seen the ugliness. Now what are we going to do with that? How are we going to combat that for our future who is looking at us? The future is looking at us, and they're protesting and they're taking marches because they're sick of school shootings, and they're looking to us adults. So I feel like the test is on us adults because our children are watching. They will continue to watch our actions. Yeah, and all of us need to step up. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's dead. I think we're at that test, and the kids are the ones holding the marker to see if we're going to pass it or not. Yeah.
Take us behind the curtain
Mm-hmm.
on, and just sum up, because I mean we don't want to publicly disclose,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
all of the information, but like, what? Just tell me about some of the conversations you've been having over the past year. As um, the new administration has taken
Mm-hmm.
over, the White House, and some of the tactics statewide that has been taking place. Major organizations, backing out of, some of their previous commitments. Like, just talk about some of those conversations that you've been having.
Yeah. There's a lot of fear, and when money is involved, a lot of people tend to retreat or retract out of fear that they could lose funding. And yes, it's a very scary thing, especially when I was working in, as a government employee, as a public school educator. There's a lot of fear behind losing much needed funding. And the conversations I've been having with, former clients and potential clients is the fear that the funding to do this work is not going to be there. So I feel like a lot of the conversations is fear, not of doing the training per se, but fear of not having the funds to pay for it. Also, fear of and frustration. I would say a lot of frustration of having their hands, tied and at a halt because of, you know, the how you say the reputation they would have from clients, customers, consumers, boycotts. That's a real thing, and I feel like with the work that I've been doing with community outreach and stuff with clients is look at and talk, get the pulse of the people that you are serving. And if that is not aligning or you're feeling that there is pushback, listen to what they are saying, because they are your bottom line when it comes to paying for your services, comes to, using your products. So I feel like the fear and the frustration from the dialogue I've been getting a lot. But it's that mirror of what are the folks that are really paying for your services and your products. If you are not aligned and you're not using your voice, your courageous voice in conversations, then you will really hurt your bottom line, you know. So a lot of the ones that I've been talking with, that's been the biggest thing, is the fear of how do we move forward? How do we keep going? Because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my bottom line from my funding, or I'm afraid I'm going to lose my bottom line from my clients and consumer, or I'm afraid of losing both. But it's, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But to me, it's like, well, you're at that point, and a lot of, you know, being a businesswoman, you have to make those hard decisions. But is that hard decision going to have consequences moving further out? So that's the thing they need to continue to think about. Yeah.
Hmm. Do you ever feel like giving up and throwing in a towel?
Oh yeah, I've had moments. I have moments. I had moments. That's why I wrote the book.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I did have fear, but to me, I pivoted. And that to me was really important because of all the 5 years of doing trainings for all of these companies and getting that halt of, oh, you know, Jeb, we can't use your services right now, or, you know, I'm not commuting and traveling to all these places around the country. I decided to put my courses and my trainings that I did live on my website. And so you've got me on video with the tutorial training. I'm showing you all the concepts. I'm giving you my library of stuff. I'm giving you prompts, and you can literally do it right at your computer. Less than an hour training. You've got the prompts to do your work in your own little journal, and you can keep on moving. And that's what's my pivot, LeTroy, was if you can't as a company hire me, well, your individuals can do this as a company. And I was getting, you know, a lot of companies that had a high turnover. And it's like, oh, we love your training, Jeb, when it comes to implicit bias. Can you come back in 3 months? I said, no, but you can buy my training and just have it on a loop with your group. And that to me has been a success. So yeah, I'm not in person as much as I would like, but they are still using my services on that loop by purchasing, you know, the training, and it's right there in real time that they get. So yeah, to me, I have hope because that's bubbling up, LeTroy. That's starting
Uh-huh.
to be like, well, my boss, if they want to pay for it and I have to do my professional development and this is a part of my reflection piece, well, I'll buy Jebeh's course. And she's got her proof of her certificate, and I can bring it to my boss. And that they can do. So it's been really successful. Because yeah, I've had those moments, my friend, where, you know, months have been real lean and you're not getting calls, or you're getting you know, RFPs rejected, and you're like, what is this doing? What is the purpose? But doing that pivot has been really successful because you don't need your boss for permission to do the work. And that's the hook that I'm showing the folks out there. Yeah,
Hmm.
to do the right
Nice.
thing. Yeah.
What do you find most rewarding in everything that you do?
What I find most rewarding is people coming up to me, you know, either they heard my podcast or they saw my book review on an elementary book on my YouTube channel. They're like, oh, I saw you and I'm going to get that book. Or they heard me interview, you know, New York Times bestselling author, you know, on their writing process. And the fact that I'm like doing this, you know, I couldn't do that in my classroom every day, you know, but interviewing and being on podcasts like yours has just been really rewarding for my kids to see like, wow, mom's actually doing her thing and showing the world that you can, you know, promote education in all walks of life and harness that for everybody. I think it's been amazing. I get up every morning. I'm like, wow, I get to do this. So I
Hmm.
am my own Oprah in a sense. Yeah, my first Jebeh. Yeah, yeah, is doing her thing. So that's what gives me joy every day. Yeah, to
Right.
create and share.
What's something about you that people would find most surprising?
Most surprising. Wow. Okay. Um, you're good. This is a really good question. What people find most surprising about me is, I love, love, love buttercream frosting on cake. That's my most surprising. I just love a good buttercream. I am like an icing connoisseur. So any cupcake, anything, I can tell if it's like that whipped cream stuff. No, thank you. Yeah, that's what I like. I love good buttercream cake. Yes. So I'm a cake fanatic. Yes. I think that's yeah. I've got sweet teeth.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. So what's
yeah.
the cake for your next milestone birthday?
Yes, okay. It's gonna be triple buttercream with an orange blossom on the frosting, on the center of it. And it's just gonna say, you did it. That's all I'm gonna have. Not just happy birthday, is you did it, girl. You did it. That's
Uh-huh.
what I'm gonna have on that cake. Yes.
Great.
Yes, yes.
All right, Jeb. So as we prepare to wind down, what's next for you? I know we got the book,
Yes,
Orange Blossom, coming out
yes. Yeah,
mid-October. What
yes.
else? What else is on the horizon?
Oh, on the horizon. Wow. It's just getting my eldest son ready to launch. He's a senior in high school, so we're getting through college applications right now. So getting him to that next stage in life and hoping to do more keynote speaking. I'm getting some gigs coming up for the beginning of the new year and talking to some women's conferences coming up of, for, you know, um, immigrant to entrepreneur type talks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that and promoting my book and doing some book tours. So, yeah, it's looking bright. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
All right, so feel free to plug where we can find
Yes.
Jebba's cultural consulting, where we can
Yes.
listen to the podcast, get our
All the
hands on the book,
things.
all of the good
Yes.
stuff.
Oh, thank you, LeTroy. Yes, you can find all my work on jebehedmunds.com, JebehEdmunds.com. You can get all my lesson plans, my trainings, all the things, and details about the book. You can follow me on Instagram at culturallyjebeh with the underscore. And you can find my podcast, The Cultural Curriculum Chat, wherever you hear any podcasts, as well as my YouTube channel, Mrs. Edmunds Cultural Corner, where we do lots of book reviews and interviews of people in this DE&I space. So thank you so much, LaTroy, for having me.
Oh,
It's
thank
a
you, Jebba. This
pleasure.
this was great.
Oh, thank you so much. I
All right.
appreciate it.
All right. So, like Jebba said, you can find her at JebbaEdmunds.com. Pick up the book, The Orange Blossom. You check out the podcast. You know, um, whatever your needs are in the cultural competency space, she is the person with the answers. And appreciate your time today,
Thank
Jeb.
you.
So
Thank you
for
so
Stop,
much,
Look, and
LaTroy.
Listen, I'm your
Yes.
host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.